Hi, thank you for joining us. This is Morgan at Splendid Yoga. We're going to start with Supine Heroes pose. This is a pose with a lot of layers. And let me tell you, friends, there is no enlightenment at the end of this path, okay? The final pose that my body can do isn't getting me any closer to world peace than the final shape that your body can do in this moment. So don't feel like you're missing out on anything if you don't go to the next layer. You're not missing out on anything. You're right where you need to be. Okay, with that said, we're going to get started in a kneeling position. So even just kneeling with your hips on your heels, that's a lot. That's a lot for a lot of us. So you might start in the tabletop position and then slowly shift your hips back just as far as those knees and ankles will allow. And you want to keep the toes untucked here if the ankles allow, but if that's too much for the ankles, then you got to keep the toes tucked. Now you have a lot of options for props here too. You could place a rolled blanket on top of your heels and then sit down on the blanket. That makes a nice little hammock. Or you could place a couple of blocks underneath your seat or underneath your hands. Sometimes that's a nice place to hold your weight for a minute or two. Eventually, you want to sink your hips between your heels. Slowly, you'll slide your heels off to the side, just to the side of your cheeks, and then sit your hips down, nestle them down towards the ground. So again, check in with the body, check in with the ankles, check in with the knees. If everything's like, yeah, we're good with this, really low level of sensation, like around a 2 or a 3. You need to ramp it up to that like 4, 5, 6. You're going to start to walk your hands back, behind you. And you can relax your head back or dip your chin forward. You can shrug your shoulders up, might feel nice. So if this still doesn't feel like much, and for the vast majority of us, this feels like everything is happening. But if you're one of the few hyper-flexible people and this doesn't feel like enough, you're going to slide onto your shoulders. Your head, lay your head down. Yeah, you can stop off at the elbows. Eventually you'll come all the way down to your back. Now your knees may come apart here, and there are different lines of thought depending on the lineage of whether or not your knees should come apart. And in the yin lineage, we want the muscles to relax entirely. So if that means that the legs are going to come apart, then that's okay. So long as the knees and the ankles, the joints, so long as the body is okay with it. If the body is in pain, there's no correct alignment. Even if you're doing everything someone says, if your body is still in pain, that's not the correct alignment for you. Get out of there. Don't be in pain, friends. That's not worth it. That's not yoga. Okay, if you did make it all the way onto your back, the final variation is to clasp your elbows overhead. And this makes it a big back bend. The low back lifts up. Now, you could do this one leg at a time. Sometimes both legs is way too much. So starting back in that tabletop position, you would sit your hips down and we'll start with the left leg out in front, so the right leg is bent behind you. And then the same variations. You can lean back a little, you can lean back a lot, you can lean all the way back. This is the variation I did when I was recovering from 2 knee surgeries in 1 year. Oh my goodness. It felt really good in one leg, and I would just picture how good it was going to feel in the other leg at some point in the future. But then I had to even give that up. I had to give up the idea that I would ever have access to this shape again in order to gain access to it. I had to let go. And that's what you have to do too. You have to let go of needing this pose to be anything other than what it is. And just find the shape that gives you some good sensation. And then you breathe and you watch that sensation change without wanting it to be any different. Because it's always different, it's always changing. And your job as the yogi is to watch it, to observe those differences as they rise and fall, just like your breath. It moves like the ocean tide pushing the sand around. Breath is nudging everything around your body, propelling the blood flow, encouraging the nervous system to relax. Settling everything down into homeostasis. Not just in your body, within your spirit, your emotional experience, within your thoughts. Allow yourself a homeostasis, a kind of baseline, in spite of the ever-changing external circumstances that you can come back to. A baseline of peace. If you decided on the one leg variation, let's switch it out. So you'll roll onto your left side, straighten your right leg, roll onto your back and then onto your right side. Bend your left knee in to the outside of your butt and roll back onto your back with that foot hooked underneath you or off to the side. You may have to take this side seated up. So you're welcome to maneuver your way into that as well, even if it's different than what you did on the other side. Feel your body. Tell your body thank you. Over and over again. Thank you. Okay, let's start to ease out of this one. So if you were all the way on your back, you'll prop yourself onto your elbows, keep your chin on your chest, then prop yourself onto your hands and come into a tabletop position. And take whatever movement you need here. So you can extend your right leg behind you, your left leg, twist and move yourself around, lay down, just let things course through themselves. Yeah, really notice those joints. Move slowly. We'll meet in a seated position for the seated bear pose with a slight twist. So go ahead, yeah, sit your butt down and set your feet on the ground wide with your knees bent a lot. And if your hamstrings are really tight, your low back feels really tight, like kind of hunched over here, like you're kind of having to hold yourself in space, just embrace that. Just bring your hands behind you and just let yourself approach a back bend here. But if it feels okay to stay seated, fold over your right leg and drape your hands on either side of that leg. And connect your left temple to the outside, the lateral side of your thigh or your knee. And just hang. So we'll hold this one for a few minutes. Over time, the weight of your body will want to push your leg down, and you can embrace that. You can let one leg go straight. You could let both legs go straight. And keep your head connected to your legs. So keep your knees so bent that your head is resting on something. Notice how much weight you have in your arms. Can you allow your legs to take that weight? Relax your toes. Relax your eyes, your eyelashes. Soften your belly. All right. Place your hands on the ground and peel yourself up off of your leg and travel on over to the other leg. Or if you still had your hands behind you, maybe try just sitting up tall from here. If you're twisting to the other side, lay your hands on either side of that leg. And lay the right side of your temple on the left side of your thigh or your knee. And let yourself settle in. Make any shifts that you need to make to take almost all the effort out of this shape. What else can you do to Soften your spine all the way down. One more minute. All right, my friends. It's Savasana time. Lay onto your back. You can let your legs flop out wide or leave your feet underneath your knees with your knees resting against each other. Feel it like a heartbeat. Gratitude for this body. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And this is where I'll leave you, friends. Stay as long as you need to. Namaste.